everyone's starting to come into the session here. Let me share my screen. So hopefully share the right screen. Just as a reminder that there's still time to sign up for the remainder of the week's sessions. We've still got this afternoon. We've got 2 sessions tomorrow. So if you're not already joined up for those, please help yourself. And just to remind you as well that all of these sessions are being recorded, and we're going to let registrants know as soon as they become available online. So if you can't make it at the time, or if it's so good that you want to share it with everyone else later, that's fine too. And that goes for this session too. It is being recorded as we speak. So welcome to, I think, a rather special episode of this week's Diversity in Data conference. I'm going to hand over in a minute to the real hosts to explain more about what that is. My name's Jenny Andrew. I am a member of the committee for DAMA UK, which is one of the co-conveners of this week's conference. And tucked away somewhere in the background, in case I vanish, we also have Ed Evans, who is chair of the BCS Data Management Specialist Group. And I always think every year our annual joint conference is a nice reminder of how much our 2 organizations have in common. And, you know, we come to data management with slightly different perspectives. And I personally think that's no bad thing. So who are we? DAMA UK is the UK arm of the International Data Management Association. So we are publishers of the renowned data management body of knowledge. We are awarders of CDMP qualifications. And our UK chapter is really a volunteer-run community, building networks and resources and education and influence for the profession itself and for data professionals at all stages of their careers. Meanwhile, BCS is the professional body for computing, and it does great work raising standards in skills and culture and ethics throughout the IT industry. Now, Ed's group nurtures the priority and understanding of data management among IT professionals, and I'm not going to argue with that. We also have to give a big shout out to BCS Women, who are also helping to convene our conference this year. And BCS Women is another of the BCS specialist groups. They give a collective voice to women and non-binary folks in tech careers through networking and mentoring and educational outreach, all sorts of things. And as myself, a 3rd generation woman in tech, all I can say is go siblings. Like, we have so much work to do there. Now on to today's business. This is going to be a slightly different format to our other sessions on like a really fab subject. But I'm going to let Paul from Grayce do the explanation of that. Now, before I do that, do stick your questions into the chat. I don't know how much time we're going to have to get to them, but like, you know, throw them in there. And, you know, if we can't answer them all during the session, then I'm sure Paul and the gang will get back to them later. But if you put them into the Q&A box rather than just straight into the chat, then it gives us a chance to organize them a little bit better. All right, that's seriously enough from me. Paul, can I hand over to you to do the real introductions?
Thanks very much, Jenny. Yes, I'm Paul Dettman, and I'm the product owner for our data and tech programs here at Grayce. We're changing the way businesses harness graduate talent to help organizations close their skills gap and build long-term capability. These challenges are only increasing in this sector, actually, and we're happy to play our part in that. But this morning, I have the very easy job of introducing Roisin Wherry. Very simply, Roisin is one of Grayce's superstars. She's a proud self-taught coder with a passion for supporting others and creating diverse and inclusive environments. And actually, Roisin had a key role in launching new data and tech programs here at Grayce, which have supported countless professionals launching their careers. And we'd like to introduce you to 3 of those today. But before I do that, Roisin's run charity datathons and supported women in tech mentoring schemes, and we'll showcase our 3 lovely analysts for you this morning. So I'll hand over to you, Roisin, all yours.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I'm just going to share my slides, so bear with me on that. So yeah, today we're going to be talking around the different pathways into data careers, and realistically we're going to be going into a little bit more detail around how we've designed our pathways and how we support our data professionals getting into their careers within data. So next slide, yeah. So what we're going to go through, we're going to go through a little bit more detail about who I am and who Grayce are and what we do. And then we're going to get into the nitty gritty, what you're actually here for, which is around why you should be looking at early careers, data professionals, how you can attract them, how you can support them, how you can retain them. And then we're going to go and ask our real experts, our Data Plus analysts who have been out working in data careers for the last few years, ask them how their experiences have been, what they've learned, what they wish they'd known, any question that you can think of. Like Paul said, and as previously said, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll be happy to try and get through some of those. So yeah, Paul covered it very comprehensively, so I won't go into detail on who we are, but Grayce has been around for over 10 years now, amazingly, and we specialise in kind of 3 core areas. Change, so business change management, so that's things like project management, BAs, tech, so that covers everything from software development to information security, and then what we're here for today, which is data. So everything to do with data and data careers, from data scientists to BI analysts to data engineers and everything else in between that involves data. So we're actually a lot more than that, I think, as a business, and something that I always love to talk to people about Grayce is how much of a community we are and how much stuff we have going on. Lots of people that I've worked with at Grayce and still work at Grayce with me will talk so fondly about how much of a community we are and how much extra stuff we have available to do. So you might spot me about to do a skydive a few years ago. So we do lots of great work around charities, and around just different passions that people across the business have. We are full of enthusiastic, kind of bright people who want to do extra stuff with their time, and they want to give back to the communities that we live and work in, and they want to network and meet other people across the UK and the other analysts, about 550 people at the moment that we can all network and support and get lots more from work from. So a little bit more about me. So Paul covered a lot of it, so I won't go into too much detail, but I actually joined Grayce nearly 6 years ago, straight out of university. So I joined in September 2017 on our programme at the time. I've actually kind of covered all 3 programmes. I feel quite privileged to say I've dipped around in a whole load of different things and got the experience across a wide range of different professions. So I worked in 2 different customers of ours, a bank and a pharmaceutical company. And I've done roles from working in a data analytics team to being a project manager to working as a software developer actually for a while, which was amazing. Along my time at Grayce, I've done some great work in Grayce and outside of work with different community groups and tech support groups. So I learned to code through those communities, and I've learned so much through those communities, but I've also had the chance to give back through Grayce. So we now do additional work like Code Bar every month in our hub, where we support underrepresented groups getting into tech. After my time on the programme, so I did the programme for 3 years, I was really lucky to come in and help to design and implement the Data Plus programme as it now sits. So you'll see we launched it in COVID, hence all the Zoom calls, pictures that we've got here. But we launched the data programme with my help and support. And then more recently, I've had the pleasure of kind of advancing that to some more initiatives. So we do some great work around supporting different people getting into tech and data and trying to attract like diverse ranges of people into tech and data. And one of the big things I've been involved in is around mentoring schemes, particularly for women. So we run an external mentoring scheme to help support women getting into tech mainly. And actually the big benefit I found of helping to do that is it's helped not only those women starting off in their careers, but also helped a lot of our staff, upskill and get them into those sort of management and leadership roles that they then want to progress into. So hopefully you're all here because you do understand the value of early careers talent, but just in case you're not, I'm going to persuade you that, yeah, you definitely should invest in your early careers talent. So we'll all be very aware of how much of a gap there is in the data market. So these are a few stats that I found online before I did this talk previously, so they might be a little bit out of date, but generally most organizations struggle to hire data talent. So 40% of organizations in the past year have reported struggling to hire the right data talent with the right skills. And actually the demand's just getting higher and higher year on year. We all know that roles that involve data are just increasing as our tech increases, as data underpins everything that we do. So the demand is already there and we don't have enough people to actually fulfill that demand. So we need to go out and look for new people to start their careers in data. Something that I think a lot of people forget actually about hiring new talent, it's not all about giving yourself, it's actually about getting a lot from that yourself. So you gain loads of new fresh perspectives. I've even found since I've started working with some of our newer members of staff that actually I'm gaining fresh perspectives and new ideas and a different way of approaching things, and learning a lot from them as much as they learn from me. Equally, these are going to be your future colleagues. You could be working with these people for years. You really want to shape them and help them to become the colleagues that you want to work with. So you can really role model the values and behaviours that you think are right for them to be doing, and really make sure that they're colleagues that you will enjoy working with for the next 20, 30 odd years as they continue through the industry. One big thing I've been really keen on is breaking down stereotypes and the barriers that people feel as they come into the industry. So lots of things that I would tell people in training are things like, you don't have to be super technical to want to work in data. You don't have to fit lots of the stereotypes that we always think when we think of data people. And there's so many people that work in industry, and we can really show off that diversity to encourage more people to come in. Equally, by attracting new people in, we can try and pull from different pools and backgrounds and promote diversity and diversity of thought as well. And yeah, I guess reiterating my previous point, you learn lots of valuable skills. Although you're giving a lot of training and support to other people, you learn a lot through that. I've learned some really valuable coaching and mentoring skills, and a lot more about myself actually and what I know. And it's incredibly rewarding. It's a bit of a cringy thing to say at times, but it is incredibly rewarding to work in this space and to be able to see those people that you've taught and helped go on to become amazing people in their field and do amazing things with the skills that you've given them. And slight wedge here, but genuinely rewarding, because this is a picture of me and my colleague Viv winning an award last year. So you can win awards and appreciation for the work that you do and get a lot back from that. So I'm going to go into a bit more of what you're actually here for, which is the how. So how did we launch the programme and how could you look at supporting your junior data analysts? So the data programme was launched in September 2020, so right in the middle of COVID, which was interesting. It was all virtual. We did monthly training cohorts, and we've gone as low as 4 and up to about 10 at max of different people coming together to learn data skills. We've successfully launched 127 careers in data. Last time I checked the stats, 127 people have been through this training and have launched their careers into data, and they're working in lots of different fields. They're working across 40 different customers that we have, and they're working in loads of different areas and doing lots of different projects. The principles of the program are quite simple actually in many ways. My key principles were that I want to replicate the working environment as much as possible. For some people, this is the first job professional role they've ever done. So you want to get them started on the right pathway, making those maybe slight mistakes with you rather than in their future customer. But we wanted to replicate the working environment with our ways of working. We wanted to cover a wide range of skills and pitch them at the level required to be able to do your role on day one. So not looking to make you a data science superstar or make you super proficient in lots of different options, but actually to give you all the fundamentals I think that could help you to get going on day one. and then support you continually as you develop over time, because most of us learn skills over time, not just by pushing them all up front for months and months on end. And we covered a wide range of skills. So the bootcamp that we run at the beginning particularly covers everything that you could think of in many ways, but we cover everything from SQL and our more technical skills to one of our most loved pieces of training, which is powerful presentations, where we get our analysts to come back and present to our senior team about their hobbies and interests and use a bit of data in that as well, which is always fun. My main thing was about making people feel comfortable and ready to roll on day one in their particular customer. So actually just making sure that they can feel like they can do something on that first day. And we evolved, so we've changed this program a lot. Like, the program as it was in September 2020 is not the program now, and that's because we are constantly going back to our customers, looking into the marketplace and seeing what other people are up to, and then also asking our own analysts and our people, what do you like? What would you prefer? What would make this a better experience for you? And developing that over time. So a key question I asked at the beginning for me was actually, how do you learn new skills? And I think when I ask this question normally to audiences, people will come back with some really obvious answers. So they'll say, oh, well, I've got a license for Udemy. I'm trying to learn SQL through that, or we have set training sessions we have to go to at work. Yeah, that's all great and good, but actually there's lots of other ways that you can learn. And I wanted to emphasize that in my training. So my training very much, and the program very much incorporates learning through different methods. So you can learn through things like today, coming and listening to other people talk about their careers and what they've been up to. You learn so much from that. So picture there is us at the Data Science Festival down in London, me with a couple of our Data Plus analysts. You can learn through books, watching the TV, if you can believe it, great documentaries on data and ethics online. And this book, Invisible Women, I have recommended to every person that's ever gone through my training. Amazing book that would give you a really good kind of base on thinking about data ethics. And then also just generally, you learn from doing your job, you learn through actual experience and giving it a go, and through chatting to colleagues, coming into an office, coming into one of our hubs, if you work for us, and speaking to your colleagues and finding out new stuff from them. So really, I guess carrying on from this theme, I used my experience, and that's what I would always recommend. You will not believe the buckets of experience that you have packed in your brain that you've probably never given away to anybody, but there's loads of experience you have that's really valuable. Think back, how did you feel 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe, or even at the start of your career? How did you feel? What do you wish you told yourself at the time? What do you wish your colleagues had done at the time? And then, help to put that into the design of what you're actually trying to give people. So think about, realistically, what are those experiences that have really shaped my career? How could I incorporate that into helping others so that they maybe don't have to go through those pain points or those bits in their career that they found challenging? Be authentic and open. So like, one of my big things in training was not sugarcoating bits and not pretending that certain elements of my career were particularly enjoyable or great. It's about being honest, and being honest about when I maybe wasn't the best at my job and things like that. It's the best way to engage trust in people, but then also give them the confidence that they can make mistakes and things can go wrong. So one of the big skills I've actually learned through the data program is how to be a good coach and a mentor. I went some great mentoring training with some of our coaches that we have in-house that work full-time with our analysts. And what I found from that actually was a really great principle of supporting and challenging. So when we think of teachers and coaches, we think, oh, they've got to support me, they've got to help me, they've got to make sure that I'm all right. But actually, you need to have both. You need to be able to tell people, no, actually, you're wrong, or I don't think you thought about that in the right way, and be able to challenge people to help them progress quicker. So a good coach will balance both supporting people and helping them and giving them that help when they need it, but also challenging them when they're maybe not being the best at their job or not doing the best way around a particular project. So yeah, it can help drive faster change and quicker learning, basically. And learning should be challenging. I'm a big advocate for, I don't want anyone to do my coding challenge within a minute. I don't want people to quickly answer my questions. It needs to be a bit of a challenge. You need to be able to think through your answers so that you can really learn from that experience and really learn from what you're doing in training. And on that theme, this cat represents me whenever I get stuck in code. You can learn from your mistakes. So actually, one of the big things I learned in training was I had to make training as realistic as possible. So I had to deliberately try and make places where people would make mistakes or wouldn't actually get the right answer or would have to look into it. And I'd have to coach through the mistakes. So as somebody with experience, you might find it really easy to go in and just go, oh, you've got that wrong, you just need to do this, and tell someone the answer. But actually, it's better for them to learn through you talking them through and helping them get to the answer themselves. They'll learn much better that way, and then they'll learn how to resolve their problems quickly in future. Don't cover up your errors. This is a big one, and this is one I was so scared of doing. But if you're ever doing stuff where you're maybe sharing your screen and you're coding, and then someone asks you a question and you can't answer their question immediately, admit that. Tell them, I don't know, I'm Googling this. By making yourself perfect, you're making them feel imperfect by not knowing the answer. So you've got to be honest sometimes and say, I don't know, actually, I'm going to have to Google this, or I'm going to have to work through this problem myself. And yeah, so on that principle, demonstrate this yourself by also learning from your own mistakes in training. So gather feedback and action it, and be honest with people that and admit, oh, that piece of training probably could be improved. Yeah, we're going to work on that and we're going to evolve it. Advocate for others. So this is a big one I've been doing for the last few years, or trying to do. We all need opportunities to prove ourselves. It's really hard when you're a junior analyst to get people to trust you and to believe in you, but actually some junior analysts will come in and do some amazing pieces of work for you if you just give them the chance. So I would say we all need to support other people going through that journey, focus on their transferable skills, right? You're never going to hire someone with 3 years SQL experience as they walk through the door, but they may have done some personal projects. They may have worked in a similar environment to you. They may have other skills that will be really helpful for your team. And then also at the same breath, like we all need a bit of a challenge. So we all need to allow people that margin for challenge and to be pushed in their roles so that we can develop. And the main spaces I've done this is with some of our customers. So when I've gone to customer conversations, bringing examples of where I've seen analysts who've maybe not had buckets of experience, but how they've done and how they've excelled in their careers, bringing those examples and pushing them to the front to show the power of that kind of junior talent that you're working with. And then the final, I think this is my final one, is thinking outside of the box. So this is a bit of a funny story, but basically about a year into our data program, we had a bit of a challenge. We had quite a lot of analysts who felt, great, I've done all this training, I've done all this extra stuff, but my client doesn't trust me to actually do lots of the things I want to be able to do. We don't do data science where I work, what can I do? And they want to use their training. And so our thinking outside the box was actually quite simple in the end. We designed a charity datathon. So I went out to the charity that we partnered with at the time, Coffee for Craig, and we asked them, is there any data work that you'd like to be able to do? And they came back with buckets of ideas of stuff they wanted. And so we signed up all of our analysts on a Saturday, if you can believe it, to come into the office and come and just play with their data, try out new stuff, bring them some new insights. And it was really, really impactful. Coffee for Craig were really appreciative of the work we did, and we gave them some really great insights that they could then actually use within their charity and take real benefit from. And also our people got a lot from that day. They met each other, they got to socialise, they got to push their skills to a new level and try out new stuff. And I'm pleased to say we've started off a trend because we've had Datathon 2.0 already, and we've got a third one in the pipeline soon as well. So we've got a real kind of momentum going with this now as well. Oh, this is my final one. So my final one is about supporting yourself and supporting each other. Don't do it alone. So you will start to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. If you become a coach or a mentor, you will really start to understand them. But play to your own strengths and weaknesses and understand those and get to know yourself, and ask for help and advice and support from other people, whether that's within your own company or going and speaking to other companies. when we launched the program, I went and spoke to loads of our customers and also other people I knew in industry and asked them for their advice and their help, and that actually helped us to shape a really comprehensive program. Share your load. So I very much believe in advocating for our people and putting them to the front, and also allowing them to try out bits of my role and bits of coaching and mentoring, and so therefore they share the load with me as well, which is really lovely, and create communities. So I talked really early on at the beginning about how I'd dipped into communities and loved being part of communities when I was going through my first few years, and I really tried to incorporate that into the data program. So we tried to encourage people to get to know each other so they could help each other and not just rely on me or their manager or whoever it might be, to have a real community of support, because that would then allow them to progress quicker and get their answers quicker. And on the theme of not doing it alone, I'm now going to hand over actually to what I would say are our three real experts on this topic, our three lovely Data Plus analysts who are going to come and give us a brief overview of like what they've been doing and then answer some of your questions. So to do that, I'm going to stop sharing. So, Sophie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Roisin. So yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Sophie, and I graduated from Bristol Uni in 2020. I studied physics at uni, and I always enjoyed like data analysis and problem solving in laboratory experiments. So I began looking for jobs in data, and I joined Grayce's Data Plus development program in 2021. And since then, I've worked as my first role was working as a Power BI developer for 9 months at a bank. And my current client now is a pharmaceutical company where I've been working for about 1.5 years now. And my main role, my role is pretty varied, but my main role is looking after project data for the digital health department, using a software as a service data management platform called Airtable. But on top of that, I also build automations by coding in JavaScript and syncing data to Power BI for visualization. On top of that, I'm also working on a side project for the data science team, doing exploratory analysis in RStudio and Python. And I do have a pretty strong interest in data science actually, and it's where I'd like to take my career in the future. So I've been doing a lot of personal development, both in and outside of work. And that's been super helpful to sort of upskill myself in relevant areas.
Thanks, Sophie. That was really insightful. And I know how much extra work you've been doing in data science and how impressive some of your projects are. So I'm excited to hear a bit more about those. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So similar to Sophie, I have a background from my degree in science. I specifically did astrophysics, and during that degree, I realized that the part I preferred more was actually the handling data, processing it, and making nice pretty displays. So when I graduated in 2021, I was also looking for opportunities in the data industry, which led me to Grayce. My first role was actually in a smaller company in the retail sector, where I worked as a more varied role, specifically more using SQL, and then also specializing in visualizations in Power BI. I worked there for 1 year before I went back to Grayce, where I then was a data coach for 3 months, working again with Roisin on coaching people who had limited experience in the data previously, and upskilling them to like an analyst level, such as through Grayce. And then I have now recently joined a company in the energy sector where I'm working on a long-term data governance project. And that is me.
Oh, thanks, Beth. Yeah, a real breadth of experience. And I can personally say Beth is an amazing coach. She did an amazing job on a really challenging project that we did with external learners. So an absolutely amazing advocate for Grayce and what we do. And so finally, we have Maddie.
Hi, so before joining Grayce, I was basically a perpetual student. I started off with a degree in psychology, and I really enjoyed the research methods modules. So I did like statistics in SPSS, and that kind of led me to do a master's in data science. So I kind of learned how to do a bit of coding in R, kind of like statistics, machine learning, things like that. So yeah, and then I kind of did a few other masters, but my main interest was the data analysis aspect. So that was really fun for me. And then I started looking for jobs, and I stumbled upon Grayce, and yeah, I applied and was successful. So since joining, I have worked at a company where I was looking at who was being rewarded, who was giving out rewards for like being like helpful and things like that, doing like presentations on who was giving who rewards and what department they were in. And I also calculated people's bonuses in a spreadsheet, and that was really interesting. And since then, I've learned things like Snowflake. I've been doing Databricks at the moment, and I've developed my Python skills as well. So that's been really fun.
Wow, thanks, Maddie. And yeah, another kind of really comprehensive view of lots of different stuff that you've already been up to, which is amazing, considering that you're not even at year one on the programme yet. You've not even done a full year yet. Really incredible to hear how much stuff you've been up to. So a lot of you have actually already covered part of my first question, but we'll go ahead into it, around like what attracted you into data. And I guess aside from what attracted you initially, now that you work in data, what do you enjoy about working in data? What is it that gets you up in the morning and gets you back onto your laptop each day?
So for me, it's sorry.
You go first, fine.
So for me, it's like the training aspect. Like I really love to learn. So for me, it's like getting more training, lots of different opportunities in data as well. So also like the variety of clients as well. Like Grayce have a lot of different sectors that I can work with. So for me, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say a lot of people that I speak to, and including me, are joining Grayce because of the variety of stuff that you can do. So yeah, I would fully agree on that. And no 2 days are the same if you work in data, hopefully. Yeah, definitely. Beth?
Yeah, similar to it not being the same every day, I like the challenge of it, the fact that every day is a different challenge in data, whether you're working in visualizations, if it's processing data, science, cleaning, because of how fast it changes, it's never the same pace, which I quite like. I like the variation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think being challenged is a big draw, isn't it? And having those experiences that are hard. Sophie, do you have anything you'd want to add in terms of what you love about data?
Yeah, so I think for me, it sounds a little cliche, but I guess what's amazing about data is that, I feel like you can pretty much describe anything in the universe with numbers and data. And, that's why a lot of companies are leveraging data now. And especially with the development of new technologies and AI, data, if you have the brain for data and problem solving, you can do so much with it. And companies can gain so much insight from that, and to be part of that is super rewarding. So yeah, that's what kind of gets me up every day, is being able to play a part in helping, kind of improving the world and like help making it a better place by using data in that way. So yeah, that's kind of what gets me up every morning. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you must have seen that, I guess, working at a pharmaceutical company. Some of the stuff that you work on must be pretty pivotal in getting out some really important, products to the market that can really change people's lives. So yeah, I think
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So we've actually got a question from the chat. You all come from quite different backgrounds. or varied backgrounds generally. What do you bring forward from those that informed your data work now?
I can go first again if you want.
Yeah,
As I say again. So from my background, it was handling quite a large amount of data. I don't know if anyone else listening has experience in astrophysics, but the way it typically works is you look at one point in the sky and get like 3,000 rows of data, if not like 30,000. It can be very, very difficult to look at. And you have to then use equations, formulas, and different methods to narrow it down to get exactly what information you want. The same can be from the retail sector. Weirdly enough, you wouldn't think to get a comparison, but with how many stores you have around the country, and how much information actually feeds in, when you're trying to clean through that and then get out the exact amount you need to a client, using those skills like time management and like how you process it and your the way you work with it, they can apply very directly.
Fab. I would have never thought that you could compare the two, but when you say it, it makes total sense. And I love that. That really brings it to life.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, and yet here I am.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, brilliant experience. Sophie, do you have anything you'd add?
Yeah, I think so. Again, like Beth, doing a sort of a physics degree, I did have some skills such as coding, for example. So I actually did learn a bit of Python during my degree. Not much, but it was still like a good sort of springboard to jump into some other coding languages and that kind of thing. That was pretty beneficial, but also just kind of dealing with numbers like every day, because that's a lot of what physics is, maths as well, but you've also got that sort of problem solving that you have to apply to your day-to-day, like lab experiments. And again, with physics, it can be pretty varied as well. Just from, it's such a wide field, just like, the world of data is such it's such a big field too, and your work can be really varied. But yeah, it's just being able to problem solve and also apply a bit of creativity to what you're doing. Yeah.
And do you think people don't understand that data is creative as an industry to work in? I tended to have found that when I describe working in data, people think I sit on a spreadsheet all day and go plonk, 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 plonk. But it can be incredibly like creative and varied, and can use lots of skills that you wouldn't have initially thought. So yeah. I have another question that we had pre-prepared, so I'm going to go to that one actually. In your first few years in your career, what challenges have you come across, and how have you overcome those, either through your client teams or through Grayce? How have you overcome any challenges that you've come across?
I think for me, one challenge would be feeling like I don't know as much as others. Like, for example, other people in my cohort were talking about things like ETL, and I hadn't quite got to grips with that yet. So I think for me, it was just overcoming it by doing all the training that helped me to feel a bit more confident.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a common theme, isn't it, that people feel very uncomfortable in those first few months, particularly with feeling confident. And there's so much work that we can all do to help improve that for people, and obviously training is really helpful in that, definitely. Sophie?
I'm happy to go next.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, when I started my first role, working in industry, I kind of felt, I had quite a lot of the technical know-how, I had the training from Grayce. And yeah, once I kind of got settled into the role, the thing that kind of kept coming up for me as being a sort of a development area was sort of communicating my insights to stakeholders, especially if you do come from a technical background and you're working with data. You might understand the data really well, but your clients or your customers or your stakeholders who maybe are less technically minded and care just about the insights you've drawn from that, which will benefit the business, you have to be able to almost communicate it in a clear and concise way and not sort of drill into all the detail that you might know. And that might be through, sort of meetings and presentations that you give of your results, and it's just a way of presenting it in a form that they can ingest the data and the insight without kind of getting them sort of all lost in the nitty gritty details. So that's something that kind of comes with experience, I think, and just doing a lot of practice and experience. And then the second thing as well is change management. So that's an area that is actually quite important in any sort of data role, especially data science. Actually, in a lot of data science roles, you will be problem solving, but also coming up with maybe solutions or systems or different ways of working. You might be developing a predictive model that actually might be replacing roles that a human being would do, that kind of thing. And it's about effective change management is really important in order to sort of get your stakeholders or your people in the team used to this new way of working, because it's quite a natural response for a team if they're very ingrained years of using one system or way of working, and then they have to use this completely new system. It's like a massive change. And so for me, I found doing change management courses super helpful, and I can apply that in my day-to-day work. So yeah, those are two things that I feel have been a bit of a challenge.
That's brilliant. I think they're two great examples of the wider skills that really make a great data analyst. It's not just, or a data professional, it's not just being able to do all the technical stuff. If you can't translate that back to your customers, it's useless, isn't it? And I've definitely felt that pain point at many points in my career. So yeah, some great tips there on how you could actually look at that and push back in to make sure you get the most value from what you're making and what you're creating. A brilliant insight there. And we've got a great change community at Grayce that you can tap into, which I think is lovely for that. I did lots of change qualifications when I was on the programme, so I enjoyed it. Beth, have you felt anything similar, particularly as you talked about large data sets and trying to wrangle through it to find the insights? Have you found any other challenges?
Obviously, I've spoken. I think Sophie covered most of the things I would have mentioned. The only one that I can think of would be when I started a client. It wasn't related to data; it was related to stakeholders, because I joined at the tail end of lockdown. So we weren't really allowed to meet each other face to face, and they all weren't up to date with Zoom yet, and everyone on my team knew who they were, so no one would thought to explain it to me. So my greatest challenge was explaining to people, I don't actually know who anyone is. Please, could you let me know? And it ended up having to communicate with my team that I needed to have these Teams meetings and with people to set up who my stakeholders were. So I wasn't just getting an email from someone like, oh, Dave from down the road says he needs this. So but yeah, it's basically my way of getting context and letting my team know that I needed that provided to me.
Yeah. You're not just a machine that pushes out graphs and numbers. Yeah. You do need context. That's really interesting, because I think that's something a lot of teams don't think about when they hire new talent at any level. It's all of that embedding you in is quite complex and takes a while. You can't just launch in and immediately start doing your job. You need a lot more of that help. It ties into another question I had actually around what advice would you give to a team? Say there's someone on this call who's going to be onboarding some junior data analysts soon. What advice would you give to them to help onboard that person so that they can do their job effectively and quickly, I guess?
As I've recently started company, I can actually say this one. Set aside time to explain to them how the company is, what their role is, what they'll be expected to know, and what resources you can provide to help them in their journey. It's really useful, I found, to know exactly what was expected from me and in what time frame, especially for a new company, because all the terminology that can be used can get really overwhelming really quickly. So you just sit them down and explain it to them. It takes a lot of anxiety and stress away.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I think that's a key thing, touching on anxiety and making those people feel really comfortable and they have what they need to be able to do their job is quite key, definitely. Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts on how teams can help people into their roles?
I guess like make sure new people know that you're around, so that if they have any questions, that basically you're around to answer them, maybe.
Yeah, I think dedicating some time, I've found, has been quite key. Some teams want to onboard you, but then can't dedicate half an hour a week to onboard you. Well, they're not going to really get you ready to roll. I found that when I've worked with some of our data analysts, like you need a bit more time to just get up to speed when you're fresh. So you need to dedicate that time as somebody who's leading on onboarding that person, so that they've got the space to kind of learn from you. Sophie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one quite important thing is I feel that every person's different, and when a new analyst might come in, I feel like everyone has different ways of learning, and I can vouch for my line manager being very sort of in tune with what I kind of want out of my career. And he often, like, he knows that I have quite like a technical brain, but then he makes suggestions like, maybe doing change management, like reaching out to your Grayce colleagues who are in change management, that kind of thing, and kind of like making suggestions to me as I go along, and kind of really listening to, we have like weekly check-ins pretty much, and he's always been a really good listener. And I think that's really important, like for a mentor or a manager, and just, yeah, having those check-ins and like seeing, how you're doing with your client work, like, are there any sort of sticking points, anywhere that I can sort of help? But then again, he won't like necessarily just provide me with the solution, but will make suggestions like, have you tried talking to these people? Like, you should reach out to this person. I mean, that also allows you to network within the company too. So yeah, I feel like, having not just your manager or just like one point of contact as well, but like people like across the business who you can sort of reach out to and sort of build a good working relationship with can really help you. Like, learning from other people as well is really valuable.
I love that, because that touched on a few themes that I went through my talk around kind of coaching, and how coaching isn't just like leading someone to the answer. Well, it's not telling someone the answer, it's leading them to their correct answer for them. And also like the power of community and that support that I know we all feel that we get, both from Grayce and then from the clients that we might work in as well. I'm going to move on to a question that we've got in the chat, because I think it's quite an interesting question. This one is from Aisha, talking about, do you see a shift in the diversity gap and attitudes towards emerging talent / young people through your work?
I don't know if I've seen a change, because I'm quite new to this, but I think that diversity is seen as quite important in where I've been working, so that's a good thing.
Fab.
Like, we have our E1E programs, everyone empowered, things like that, which is good.
And does that make you feel more comfortable to be in the space?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree on that. And it's something I know there's a lot of people that are very passionate about, but particularly at Grayce, I know that there's a lot of people that really want to push that and support that, and hopefully give those positive experiences to people like you. Yeah, so definitely.
I think in terms of young people, I think I have seen a change towards it, because especially for companies that are trying to shift towards like meeting up cloud-based approaches or with new technologies, they typically want more young people, because they're still learning and they're ready to learn, and a lot of them have just come out of university where that's what they've been doing. So it's sort of, they've not got ingrained habits yet. So a lot of people want to employ them for their knowledge or potential, rather than people who've maybe set in their ways of old company cultures. So I think people are more receptive to young people now.
Yeah, and there's a big point, isn't it, around how you can shape those people and really help them to work well for your business and your area, because every business is quite different. And some of us may have experience working in organisations with some very ingrained ways of working that aren't particularly great for the business. So bringing in some fresh people can bring a really great new perspective, definitely. I've got another question, which I know some of you have answered before, so I hope you've got some good insights on. So thinking back to when you applied for your first role in data, what would you say your top tips are for the application and interview process?
I'm not good at interviews personally, but I think for me, I think my enthusiasm came across. Well, I hope it did. I'm not sure quite how I got the job, but yeah, I think just show your enthusiasm, I think, is a good thing. Maybe do a bit of research on the company, so that you kind of prepared for that as well. So yeah, definitely some good tips there. Definitely enthusiasm for data particularly, and what you love about it. So that first question, what do you love about data, I've asked to lots of people I've interviewed, and that can really show, that can really change the style of the interview that you're doing, and what you feel about that person depending on how enthusiastic they are about their answer. And it can be, you can get some wonderful answers off the back of that. So yeah, definitely. Beth, I wonder if you have any insights as someone I know who's prepped people for interviews before and done some interview workshops.
So one thing I'd recommend would be think about how like your past experiences can tie into your future career. For instance, like my case, most people don't see how astrophysics can tie into like the data industry as I'm currently working now. So it's like, for me, it was, okay, how well can I explain to people in simple terms what astrophysics is for me and how it will benefit me in the future and benefit the companies I work at. And people who don't have such long-term, and for example, when I was data coaching, and be, okay, well, we've done 3 weeks of intense training here, so you can apply with these and say exactly what kind of skills you did and what the detail levels are. So just think about what your experiences are and how you can best apply them, really. You'd be surprised how many overlaps there are.
Yeah, definitely. It's tying back in with that transferable skills, isn't it? Your job working in a pub, you might not think it's relevant, but it's super relevant if it involved talking to lots of different people and handling challenging conversations and things like that. You can always tie back in. Yeah, definitely. Sophie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think something Roisin alluded to just in the introduction actually is, having some, even if you don't have any industry experience or previous experience in working with data, anyone can, download Python or RStudio and start coding. And there's loads of online courses available. And I think, if you are really passionate about it, you can put together almost like a bit of a portfolio to bring to your interview and kind of explain, look, even if you don't have that sort of real life experience, this is what you've done. You have like something to show that, you've taken maybe a data set that you find interesting and you've done some analysis on it, maybe a bit of predictive modeling or machine learning. And yeah, I think just it's very accessible, and you don't have to have worked, you don't have to have studied it at uni necessarily, or have worked in industry, because that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like there's so much data out there that you can access and just gain insight from, and just kind of teach yourself. And again, if you do need a bit more guidance, there's a lot of online courses, like again with Grayce, they provide the sort of the training beforehand, but you can use that as a foundation and then build upon that and apply it to your own data sets and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think having a just like a little something to show, to take to the interview, kind of helps you stand out a bit there. So yeah, that's kind of what I.
And you alluded to it earlier. You've done some data science projects, haven't you, in the past? What sorts of themes have you done on those? Like, what sorts of projects have you done to give maybe some people some inspo on a project they could do for an interview?
Yeah, so in the past I've done stuff on predicting global temperatures, to do with global warming, like climate change. So that's kind of like a bit of time series analysis. I'm currently doing stuff on image recognition, and just doing a sort of I'm actually doing a deep learning course, and I built my first classification binary classifier recently, following this online course that I did, using like images of my own, my sister's pet kitten and my my dog. So it like was just a classifier that basically detected whether like the images that I fed in was like my sister's cat or my dog. And that was just quite fun because I used like an online course that took me through the steps, but then I could like apply what I've learned to you know, my own actual data, and that was quite exciting. And you know, just being able to, you know, kind of going from knowing nothing about image classification to just using like an online course and being able to teach myself and then use my own data was really rewarding. So yeah, there's just like a wide set of skills you can gain from online courses, but then you can go and apply it to your own data and problems.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a great example as well, to say that like you can use the online course, but then to make it challenging, tweak it, do something a bit different, change it about a bit, think of something a bit different to do with that. I love that. Also, I just love cats, so I love the example, as we all know. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Sophie. We've got one final question. Actually, it's very similar to my final question that I had for you all, which is around sort of women and diversity in data, really, which is the theme of this week. So the anonymous attendee here has said, like we're seeing some great examples of women in data in this call. Do you see this reflected in your management teams, more senior people in your customers? And if not, what sorts of barriers do you think there are, and how can we encourage people to continue their careers in data? Because I think there's a lot of emphasis on getting you through the door, but then how do we actually say, no, you should stay, we want you to be here? So as people that are at that probably point in your career where you're deciding what you do next, how do you think we can encourage more women and more people who are underrepresented in data to continue their careers within data? And it's a big question.
I think there's quite a few people who are like women or minorities at Grayce, which is really good. I think to kind of keep them maybe show them like success stories maybe of other people that have made it. Make sure that they have like maybe like support, like mentoring from other people. I think I might have pinched that answer from someone else, sorry. But yeah, make sure they have like feel welcome. I'm sure lots of people do that anyway. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, two great points there, really, like around role models and seeing those role models, particularly within the organisation that you're in, I think is key. Not just outside of your company, and having mentors and support from other people. Yeah, definitely. Sophie?
Yeah, so I think with data roles, and I think any role, particularly if you're in a pretty large company, I think it's important. It's sometimes easy for you to feel like a bit lost in terms of, you know, I'm doing this work, like, and then the end result, like, how am I making a difference to the organization? And what my company has is this thing called Workplace. It's almost like a community hub to sort of celebrate the achievements of the business. I know that can really, you know, make you feel more fulfilled and remind you like of your place in the company. So yeah, my company uses Workplace. It's almost like a Facebook for businesses, essentially. But yeah, that's kind of a way to keep, you know, employees motivated and see like how, especially in the pharmaceutical space, you know, that's very much with the company's sort of, you know, like vision is to, you know, improve clinical trials and, you know, make, you know, with the patient, you know, saving patients' lives essentially. But, you know, sometimes in my role, it's easy to forget that that's like the end, the vision essentially. So it's good to be reminded of that, that even though, you know, I'm working with project day to day, that's still helping, you know, the bigger picture, which is, you know, essentially saving patients' lives. And yeah, it's just good to like have that, be reminded of that, like feeling involved in the community of the organization, for sure.
Can I just stop you there, because that is a beautiful, beautiful place to end the session. Like, seriously, you lot, this has been absolutely fantastic. I've scribbled so many notes you wouldn't believe. So I want to really give you such a big thanks for all of the work that you put in, all of the insight you brought to this. I mean, I think one of the things that strikes me out of this is how much you can teach, not just new entrants to data careers, but also the employers that you're going out to, you know, that you just have so much to share here. And I am definitely going to be sharing this video when it goes online with all kinds of people. Really well done. And just to all of our attendees, just a quick reminder, it will be online. Sign up for the last couple of days of sessions. Brilliant job. Brilliant job. Right.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks very much, everybody. Brilliant job.